Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Bethany Fagan speaking. I'm our marketing manager here at PandaDoc. Looking forward to presenting some great content for you guys today. I'm going to let everybody give a few minutes to, or just a couple minutes to trickle in here and get settled. While I do that, it'd be great to hear from the audience today where you guys are located, where you're tuning in from. We always like to see where our audience is located and giving us a shout out. A couple of housekeeping things. We are recording today's session, so no need to worry about saving that or getting that recorded. We'll take care of that for you. You should receive that recording in your inbox after the presentation is over. I've also included the slides to the webinar as well, located in the attachments and links section in BrightTalk, so feel free to reference those later if you need to. You'll also find a few other links and goodies in the attachment section that we'll cover a little bit later. But I'm going to go on pause here for a couple of minutes and just let everybody settle in, and we'll get started in about 1 minute or so. Thanks, everybody. All right, let's get started. So today I'm going to allow our two speakers to introduce themselves, but first up we have Mike Palladino. He is our head of sales here at PandaDoc. Mike, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Bethany. Welcome, everybody. It's my pleasure to join today and talk a little shop. My name is Mike. Like Bethany mentioned, I'm the head of sales over here at PandaDoc. I've been at PandaDoc coming up on 3 years now, about 5 years in tech, and before that I was doing some operations work, which I think is really relevant to today's discussion as we talk about efficiencies and sales enablement. I've always been really passionate about being sort of at the crux of cost and production, and today we're going to discuss a lot of tactics to minimize that cost while driving that production. So really excited to chat today, and I would like to also introduce Adrian Chow from AutoClose. Adrian, would you like to introduce yourself really quickly?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. As a salesperson myself over the last 22 years, I'd also like to thank all of you for joining us today, because I know how hard it is for each of you to spend an hour away from either the phones or pounding the pavement. For the last half of my life, I was on Bay Street and Wall Street, working at a hedge fund, raising capital for a lot of large money managers. And over the last 2 years, I've been, we co-founded and launched AutoClose. And so I've burned all my suits and grown in an unshaven goatee. But it's not as full as Mike's, but I'm working on it. It is exciting for me to be presenting with Mike today, because I can honestly say that AutoClose would not have grown into the company that we have in the last year had it not been integrating PandaDoc into our own sales process. So I think we're all here today on this call because we have at least one thing in common, and that is that we're all ambitious, driven salespeople. I can safely say without a doubt that I'm sure each of you are even amazing at what you do. Why? Because you're here with some humility and the passion to possibly learn more or be better, and maybe even find some new tools to use in your toolbox. So for that reason, Mike and I feel that all of you here today will benefit from some of the insights and best practices that we've gained, helping sales teams across the globe find efficiency by employing some of the right tools and technology together. So we'll just jump into the first slide. I think that many of you will know just offhand. And I'll start off by telling a story at the risk of dating myself. I remember once upon a time growing up way before Google that you had to look up everything in the Encyclopedia Britannica. literally people sold these suitcases full of books door to door. And I never once turned to my parents and said, hey, when I grow up, I want to be just like that guy. So the point is, like, most of us don't find a career in sales. It usually finds us. Because somewhere along the way, we discover that, we really excel at one thing, and that's talking to people. I've never heard a salesperson that I've worked with or on my team that's told me their favorite part of the job is writing reports or doing their expenses. As most of you know, evidence shows us here in this slide that 2/3 of a salesperson's time is spent wasted, during the day not talking to clients or prospects, and therefore not driving the sales process forward. So looking at this slide, why as salespeople do we waste so much of our day on tasks that are usually, not generating profit or revenue to the bottom line, or that we're not great at, or that we hate even? So obviously it's important to stay organized and on top of all your interactions as a salesperson in order to keep deals coming in the pipeline and continuously close as many of them as possible. But it really becomes easy for each of us to get bogged down, I think, in the minutia of things like admin. So if I was to break out each and every single minute that each and every one of us spends on tasks, throughout the week, what percentage of your time, which is obviously your most precious resource, is actually spent adding value to your business or to your company? Was it the time that you spent sending all those follow-up emails that you were supposed to send last week? Was it when you frantically pounded out 50 phone calls yesterday, only to get 3 of the 25 meetings you should have in your calendar next week? Or was it when, or how about those 8 outstanding deals that you quoted last month that you were sure would be home runs, and now you can't even get the decision maker to return your phone call? So the million-dollar question is, there has to be a better way. And thankfully, today you've got access to a plethora of technology and tools to leverage from companies like mine and Mike's, so that you can automate all of those tedious, mundane tasks that take your focus away from what you do best, which is selling. Any comments there, Mike?
Yeah, Adrian, I really like sort of how you mentioned, what are we doing to try to help the business, drive the business forward. I think that's really important to mention. I don't know about you, Adrian, but I'm talking to sales and marketing leadership all day long. And, process improvement is certainly nice to have. We always want to be doing things better and improve our processes, but that's more of a sales operation and sort of a value add. And really where sales leadership seems to be focusing is really how can we focus our efforts on activities that have the best yield. So it's really sort of this mix of process improvement, but also how can we drive revenue and increase sort of an ROI on those activities. So the market definitely would agree with this slide here. Everybody's spending too much time doing everything but selling. And when you do have that time back, how can you maximize it on high ROI activity?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that kind of speaks to, the next slide here. I mean, just to acknowledge that, there's a wide range of attendees here that are listening on this call, but I know some of you might be fortunate enough to say, well, Adrian, I'm blessed. I have an awesome sales assistant. I've got a team of 10 inside sales reps or account executives to do all of that heavy lifting for me. And that would be great. But to that, I'd say, well, how much more sales alpha could each of those team members on your sales team add if they weren't spending time doing things like follow-ups or booking your calendar for the next month or 2 months? If your team instead spent that time nurturing the biggest accounts that you have, upselling them, strengthening existing relationships that you have, and you were able to focus more on closing the next new deals, how much would that add to the bottom line? So even if your business or your enterprise is further along in its life cycle and more established, then you may have a huge advantage of having leads and prospects come to you on an inbound basis. But I think it's important that you have that balance between inbound and outbound. And I think at the very least from AutoClose's perspective, the outbound portion of your sales strategy is that much more important. You need to have a strategic focus on that, and you have to consistently be filling the top end of your pipeline with new leads and new prospects. So I think there's a huge shift happening in the sales space towards automation. As you can see from the left end here to the right, the right side of the slide, gone are the days, I hope, of selling encyclopedias door to door. There's a much better way. So based on a recent Pegasystems survey, it's been studied that 40% of companies currently in the Fortune 500 are using sales automation already, and 71% of the companies that are not are planning to do so in the next 2 years.
Yeah, just to sort of piggyback on top of this, Adrian's chatting about sort of filling the top of the funnel with more leads and how we can sort of maximize on automation to do so. There's also the opportunity cost of what all of that automation will actually warrant you. So, for example, in PandaDoc recently, we just invested in an SDR team to handle sort of our prospecting and our pipeline production number. And that gave our sales reps who were previously doing a hybrid prospecting and closing model, taking everything from lead to closed won, it enabled them to get a bunch of time back on a weekly basis. And now, as opposed to focusing on, is this a qualified lead, they're actually more focused on pulling down surplus pipeline and therefore increasing productivity of the entire org. Now we have a team focused on prospecting, more time loosened up for the closing team, and now they're spending more of their activities shaking the trees, so to speak, to bring down more pipeline and therefore increase their chances of hitting their number and driving the business forward.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I mean, activity obviously breeds results. So, it really is important that if we as salespeople are the best at getting in front of clients, and if that is where we're operating at peak efficiency, then as much time as you can free up through automation, the better your results are going to be. Just generally speaking, executing a successful sales plan today means you have to find an optimal balance between a lot of different moving parts, right? Like these are just 9 of the tasks that salespeople have to accomplish just to fill the top end of their funnel. And I know, Mike, we're gonna spend some time talking about the bottom end of the funnel, but just to get in front of new deals, you have to be uncovering new leads. You have to have leads in the first place. Then you have to engage, qualify, segment them. And then, of course, you've got to, our managers or our sales leaders want to document, report, and analyze all of those results, right? All of this stuff is noise and distraction from what we really should be doing as much as we can and that's, being in front of clients. I remember when I was working at Fidelity Investments for 15 years, we used Salesforce, which was kind of the bane of my existence. I remember, at one point being really behind in call reports and saying, do you want me to be a professional CRM updater, or did you hire me to sell? So there is that balance between, doing all the things that we hate to do but have to be done as a part of the sales role, but freeing up as much time as we can to get in front of our clients. And luckily today, there are SaaS technology and sales automation companies like AutoClose and PandaDoc that you have access to now. So we can actually automate almost all of the work that you see on this slide, and therefore giving you more time to close deals. So I think the other important thing to mention is, as salespeople, you have to have the flexibility and capacity to be reactive throughout the day to, inbound deals or clients that are calling in. So the more sales automation you can deploy, the more resources you're going to have to focus on that. I do want to say that, if I can ask you to think about just one thing for a minute, how are you currently generating and mining new leads? How are you bringing new deals into the pipeline and turning over more stones? Hypothetically, let's say tomorrow I handed you a bunch of leads, more leads than you knew what to do with. Let's say that number is 2,000, or maybe the magic number is 50,000. If I give you 50,000 leads tomorrow, and if you maximized all of your resources at your disposal today, how long would it take you to close, to take each and every one of those leads through the process that we see on this slide? And how much faster could you get there if you employed sales automation and did most of that automatically? Any comments, Mike, before I go to the next slide?
No, this one, it's again, it's sort of the what if question. What are you going to be doing if all of this is taken care of, right? Like you mentioned, having to update the CRM, like that's table stakes now for like new sales hires. Like everybody's expected to be able to do the CRM. So as automation continues to increase, our sales reps are going, what their focus and what their activities are is going to further evolve into, again, those activities that require human touch. And I highly doubt that, regardless of what Salesforce says with Einstein, et cetera, that the sales role will ever be fully automated. And that's because there is always going to be that human activity that is required to push another human being to sign something or to commit to something. So what if all of this is automated? Like, we don't necessarily know where the sales role might evolve as we get better and better and leverage technology. But it's our jobs to sort of stay ahead of the game and leverage these tools in order to do a better job collectively.
Really good point. It's true. I mean, it's always going to be an art form. But, there's some efficiency to be had. If we just look at the next slide, this was a study that was done by Salesforce. And I would say, one thing that I harp on my sales guys the most day in and day out is to do the follow-up. Most people, I think, most salespeople admit their biggest challenge or their shortcoming is all the deals that you leave on the table because you didn't consistently follow up and keep those sales opportunities or conversations alive. Most people try once or twice and then on average give up. But, what we're seeing here, obviously, is it takes at least 8 to 13 touches or touch points to convert a brand new lead into someone that's ready to buy. So if we just did the math, if I gave you those 50,000 leads tomorrow, by the way, that's going to take about 500,000 touch points for you to convert each and every one of those into potentially a new sale. So how much of your resources, how much time in the current structure that you have would that take you?
Yeah, and I can even piggyback on that too. With we're an inbound-based business, so a lot of our leads are hand raisers, and we still need to see about 8 to 10 touches, even on an inbound model. So I'd have to argue that it might even take even more touches than that if you're doing outbound. And if you have a huge list of leads, like to your point, the volume of activities required to actually prospect those and convert them is absurd, and we absolutely need to rely on automation in order to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 8 to 13 just to get to the to the point where you do the pitch. Never mind closing the sale afterwards and all the touch points necessary there. So I think this is a slide that's good for both of us. I think with tools like AutoClose and PandaDoc, salespeople can really, with a minimal amount of effort, offload some of those really resource-heavy activities. So, if we were able to just do your lead gen, and then if you spend a small amount of time creating, impactful personalized campaigns and templates that you could use over and over to engage your prospects, automatically fill your calendar with appointments like we do, and send and track all of your proposals and quotes efficiently and with the right amount of information, you'll get to the sale much faster. And so literally, if automation, this may be kind of a pipe dream, but if automation is working in its most ideal state, then literally all you have to do is show up to your meetings, do your pitch, which I know each of you could probably do in your sleep, close, and move on to the next deal. So I think what Mike and I will probably agree the most important thing about automation is that even if you don't change anything about what you do today from a day-to-day basis, you might be a really good cold caller. You might land 6 huge clients at a speaking engagement that you have at the Hilton next week. You can and should keep doing all of that, but at least leveraging some of the tools that you have available to you, like ours. You can keep doing everything that you've always done well, but have us fill the top end of your pipeline and help you close at the bottom end of your pipeline around the clock, all day, every day.
Yep, and from a top of the funnel standpoint, it's all about the automation that gets you to that meeting, and the PandaDoc side of this is sort of the automation that takes place after that meeting, enhancing the buyer's journey once you actually have your teeth or your claws in them, and doing your best to use actionable insights at the bottom of the funnel to enhance even your activities post-demo or post-opportunity being created. So we're going to get into that a little bit more specifically when we look at some of the PandaDoc slides as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about this shift towards using these types of tools, I mentioned earlier, 71% of companies in the Fortune 500 are planning to use sales automation in the next 2 years to increase, efficiency and engagement. But I'll just start off by showing you one of our actual clients. I realize it's a little grainy. It might be hard to read. The slides will actually be available to you for download. You'll be able to see them much clearer. But this is actually one of our clients right within our software here, and this is just a campaign. So let's imagine the holiday season just around the corner. This is actually a snapshot of our largest client. I've made them anonymous, of course, but let's pretend for a second that these are actually your results over the next 2 months. On the right, you can see, this is a campaign that's been designed, which sends automated amount of emails that you've sort of pre-written with a bunch of follow-ups as well. The goal, obviously, is to solicit a response, and that could be through opens, clicks, and hopefully a reply or even someone booking a meeting directly in your calendar. So imagine you round up the kids and take the family down to Cabo, for the next, for 14 days in December. But the night before you get on the plane, you spend a couple of hours designing your email campaign. And just before you leave, you send it. That's exactly what this person has done, essentially, sending 8,000 emails over a 30-day period. And so, if you or this person was sipping pina coladas on the beach, you've just done cold outreach to 8,000 people, and through a set of planned follow-ups, he's engaged interest in his product, maybe by including like a video message or explainer video along with that campaign as well. You can see that, almost a third of those people have opened his email. He's got, almost 600 clicks. So let's say a click is, a pricing chart or, a link to your web page. And you can see from the number of replies, obviously there's a lot of positive results in what he's achieved in doing this campaign. So literally, if we extrapolate, the number of clicks and the replies, and conservatively say that this person, over the period he was on vacation with his kids, books 200 meetings in his calendar from people that are somewhat interested in his product or service, then literally by the time you get back from vacation, you will have, your calendar full and be busy for the next 2 months. So that's what the goal is, and PandaDoc and AutoClose tools like the ones that we're offering can work seamlessly in the background to help you uncover these sales opportunities, whether you're on the beach or you're driving to your next sales appointment. It's just a much more efficient use of time.
Yeah, I guess one of those value adds that we failed to mention here with automation is that it enables us to maybe go on vacation a little bit more often. Just use the same anecdote as Adrian. Not necessarily from a prospecting standpoint, but let's just say it's the exact same situation. I'm getting wrapped up for a vacation starting next week. I've buttoned up all of my opportunities. I've communicated to all my prospects, but my sales manager is still expecting me to hit my number, even though I'm one week out of the month I won't be working. With PandaDoc, you can still close some deals while sipping those pina coladas on the beach. With all of this automation, we really can do our job from anywhere. And if the market's telling us anything, or if technology is telling us anything, it's that the sales rep is becoming much more of a remote role, or maybe a work from home role, or maybe work from the road. Maybe field reps need to have that same type of insight. With PandaDoc, you can close out your deals from the road, from the beach, wherever it may be. And you can also sort of track actionable insight from the beach as well. If folks are viewing your proposals or forwarding your proposals, you actually have this insight that enables you to make some better decisions at the bottom of the funnel, and potentially close more deals, and from anywhere, whether it's vacation, an Uber, on a plane, to do it on your phone. You can close it anywhere, and we need these tools in order to maintain that competitive advantage as our roles begin to change with technology.
Yeah, actually, one of the coolest things I can say. I know there's a bunch of PandaDoc existing customers on the call today, along with some people that are already AutoClose users. But one of the coolest things I think, speaking of technology, about PandaDoc is just this past summer when I was in Singapore. One of the most exciting things that you can see real time with a PandaDoc quote or a deal that you have on the table is that real time you can see when someone goes into the document and is looking at it. How many minutes ago did they open the document, and literally when they sign the document, you get an immediate notification. So it's kind of like, even though I was in an airport waiting for my next flight and flying to Hong Kong, I literally saw 3 deals come in, and I didn't have to call into the office, or I didn't have to wait for the buyer to send me an email. I literally saw it real time right on the PandaDoc app.
Yeah, and that instant gratification is obviously awesome for a sales rep who's probably got a large ego and is highly competitive. But internally, we've actually hacked it to push a webhook into Slack. So now the entire company has a notification when a new deal is closed. And everybody really, really rallies behind those wins as they come in. It's definitely our number one channel in Slack is our sales wins channel. And when that notification comes in, the virality of everybody rallying behind that win and sort of, pushing the bus forward, and really aligning all of our global offices behind a sales win is an awesome thing to behold on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we speak about automation, I think a lot of you might be thinking, okay, well, Adrian's talking about email. And in today's day and age, as a salesperson, to utilize all of the tools at your disposal, the latest, greatest thing is video messaging. Attaching personalized videos right within your email in order to bump up your stats and get more opens, right? But you should also be using things like Navigator and LinkedIn. You should have multi-channel touch points. And so email isn't the be-all and the end-all. AutoClose has actually got in the pipe, a multi-channel access campaign where, maybe you send 2 emails in order to, potentially get the person interested. Then maybe the third step is adding a LinkedIn connection. Maybe the fourth step is sending an automated voicemail drop, pre-recorded voicemail that you've sent to a recipient who's already received, 3 touch points from you, so on and so on. But I do want to focus just for a quick second on email, because it is what, from a bread and butter standpoint, what we rely on and what we get the most success from, even in today's day and age of spam. So really, there's nothing magic about it. Cutting through the spam is a little bit of science and art as well. So if we just look at, some of the important numbers here, a third of people that will receive an email, if you put yourself, in the shoes of or in the mindset of someone that's receiving a cold email, 33% of those recipients will open it based on subject line alone. And of course, you have to understand that today with, smartphones, 40% of emails are actually opened on a mobile. So your subject line has to be really short and to the point. You only want to use 4 to 7 words max. And of course, personalization is everything. I'm not going to open an email that says free offer, act now. But if it's got my name, and even more so, if it addresses my, what I do at the company and the company I work at, then it will seem like I've got that this person has a valid business reason for reaching out to me. Trick of the trade if you look at actually the top 10, this is a HubSpot study, the top 10 most responded emails have RE in the beginning of their subject line. So there's kind of a life hack, but you can actually fool people if your subject line is RE or regarding, let's say, PandaDoc proposal for Microsoft. The person that's receiving the email thinks they're actually they've missed responding to a previous email, and they'll definitely open it that much quicker. So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but this is actually a couple of snapshots. Again, I forgive me for them being so grainy, but personalization is everything. So, having a tool, and there are a lot of tools out there, but having a tool that can map, for more than just first name, last name, if you can map job title, or if you can map whether or not the person uses Microsoft Dynamics, or whether or not they use Oracle software, all of that will help you get much, much better results. And this is what we kind of coach all of our users on a daily basis to focus on when they're doing their cold outreach. A few subject lines I think that are important if you incorporate this as a part of your process or just as a part of your day-to-day, follow-up emails. The RE, using the RE in front of anything pretty much will help you with your open rate. But don't ever be scared to ask for the referral right away. Especially if you're reaching out to a new company that you haven't dealt with before. I've had a lot, some of the biggest deals that our users have landed have come from people saying, hey, look, I've been trying to reach out to someone at the company that deals with X, right? Maybe it's compliance. The person that responds and says, that's not my department, but you should actually get in touch with this person. They're the right person to talk to. Boom, you've got a warm handoff, and you can actually email the right person and say, so-and-so suggested that I get in touch with you to talk to you about this. You're already in there, and you've got a warm handoff. So, like I said, it's a little bit of science and art as well. So, I would dare you to be, to even use a little bit of humor. One of the biggest digital security network security companies that we work with. He loves, doing his cold outreach campaigns. And he says, he'll say something like, Tom, it's seriously time to fire Stevie Wonder, which I thought was a little offside and maybe a little politically incorrect at the time. But what I thought is interesting is that, when you open the email and you read it, it says, it speaks to, if you don't have someone running digital security for you, then essentially your security guard is, someone that's that's blind, you know. So using a little bit of humor can cut through a lot of the spam as well. I'm going to, just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip through a little bit. So one thing that I think is less is more from a cold outreach strategy, and we can spend more time on this. There'll be a free trial for you guys to take a look at afterwards. But one thing that really worked well for me in the summer is, as a salesperson, you know, one of the biggest challenges we have is keeping our calendars full. And as Mike said earlier, you know, activity really is the most important result that we can control and that we can achieve on a day-to-day basis. So during the summer, I just basically said, you know, Tony, how full is your calendar today? Or I was even trying to be funny. You know, initially I used hashtag this is just a cold email, but in my intro I said, you know, cold emails actually have led one of our users in the last 6 months to $3.5 million in sales. So wouldn't it be nice to have your calendar as full as mine? As you can see from, you can't really see it, but there's a picture of my calendar here. I think the record on my sales team is so one person had 14 booked meetings with prospects in one day. So that's, you know, that's kind of the dream, right? Suppose that you're off busy doing a whole bunch of different things. Have automation fill that top end of your pipeline for you. So essentially, all you have to do is show up and close the deal. I've spent a lot of time on opens and click-through rates. I think that I will hand it over to Mike. Before I do that, you know, one thing that I want to challenge you to sort of think about is, you know, at the end of the day, you guys all know where you want to go. You're in the driver's seat of your own sales plan. Well, let's say, you know, I put you in a car and I tell you to drive from LA to New York. Instead of driving in this Ford, though, let's say I put you in a newly minted, fresh off the line Tesla Model 3, you know, with all of the bells and whistles, self-driving technology at your fingertips. Employing sales automation tools like ours is really like having GPS and Waze. You know, it's going to get you to Manhattan a lot faster, and it's going to keep you from sitting in traffic. So would you take your hands off the wheel if I told you that you had the option to? So I think I've spent a lot of time talking about the, you know, filling the top end of your sales funnel. I do want to hand it over to Mike because, you know, his company very much specializes on filling the bottom end of the sales, or closing the bottom end of the sales funnel. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. So I kind of want to piggyback off of one of the pieces here from Adrian's slides, you know, the subject lines. That's a classic trick, the regarding. I've been using that for years, and it's only kind of becoming an adopted strategy, I think, status quo recently. But we sort of imply a similar process to PandaDoc. Subject lines are really important to us. For us, it's more the title of the proposal. But subject lines, personalization, customization, open rates, like these are all tactics or notifications that can help us do better. And they're all tricks of the trade that, like, at some point in the selling evolution, they were manual, but now they're becoming much more automated. And that's because, like, buyers are predictable. They want to feel comfortable with a vendor. So the proposal, like, really needs to be professional, and it really needs to stand out versus the competition. Maybe you're selling against a bunch of enterprise solutions that are far further in their life cycle than you are, and you really need to stand out with a uber professional and custom looking document. That's something that you can find at PandaDoc. So from a design standpoint, we really want to enable our customers to drive that comfort with their buyers. But buyers also want to know that you've solved similar problems for similar customers. So customization is also an extremely important aspect of this. How can you leverage technology to customize a proposal with a case study that is a competitor of the client's or in the same vertical, or where we're solving a very similar problem for the client? How can we tell this story in a relevant way and customize this proposal as a mechanism to do so? Buyers also want to understand, how your implementation process works, or maybe how your pricing works. So the proposal can also become a place where you educate your buyers about how to adopt your software, or what that process looks like, or what the cost may be. And all of this is really sort of the portion that PandaDoc will automate for you. Through the use of templates, through the use of content libraries, and aligning marketing and sales with content that you can fill these libraries with, PandaDoc becomes a place where marketing and sales can really align to enhance your buyer's journey by customizing, educating, and designing something that's professional and is a great first step forward in the bottom of the funnel during sort of this consideration and buying phase. But that's not really the only piece that PandaDoc will help you with. The other portion is sort of these actionable insights. Everybody's looking for actionable insights, and we talk a whole lot about analytics and notifications and open rates. It's like, but what are you doing with that information to help you do a better job? So you can see here, and again, it's a little grainy, but you'll have these on the download. We have notifications on our view rates in PandaDoc here that are granular down to the actual page of the document that the person was viewing, and you can actually see percentages of where people are focusing their time. So if you notice that somebody is spending far more time on the pricing table than they are on maybe some of your marketing content, then you certainly know that pricing might be what is holding this deal up, and you need to prepare yourself for that conversation. Perhaps you see that the proposal that you sent to the head of sales actually got forwarded to Adrian Chow, the SVP, and now you realize, okay, this is actually a decision maker that I'm really hunting for. This is the person that's making that decision. So again, that's actionable insight that will allow a sales rep to do a little bit better. The other piece here too is for a sales leader like myself, I'm always trying to harness my sales team's focus, specifically at the end of a month and at the end of a quarter when we're watching the revenue number grow and we're trying to fill that gap. With these open rates and with these statuses of the proposals, whether it's in viewed or sent, or if it were forwarded, you're going to have an idea of which folks are actual buyers and which ones maybe aren't ready to buy. So I can now focus my sales reps' activities to high yield activity at the bottom of the funnel. Should I be spending a lot of time reaching out to somebody who hasn't even opened my proposal, or should I maybe spend a little bit of additional time pushing somebody who has viewed it and has forwarded it? Where would my odds be better to close this deal? Most likely in that viewed document. And finally, as a sales leader, it really enhances my forecasting capabilities, especially as we're finishing up a month or a quarter. If I can see almost a pipeline at the bottom of the funnel, how many dollars does this person have in sent proposals? How many dollars does this person have sent in viewed proposals? That's going to enable my final forecast at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, when the executive team is asking me where we're going to fall. I use PandaDoc to really increase my closest to the pin number on a monthly and quarterly basis as we're forecasting here. So these are just some tricks of the trade specific to PandaDoc. I think this is a really interesting conversation because Adrian is much more on the top of the funnel and PandaDoc is right at the bottom of the funnel. And it's sort of like the sales cycle that sits between us. But that's really all I had here, and I think we're probably going to move into some Q&A unless Adrian, you have some more to speak to.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to mention on your last slide, and I'm not just a customer, I'm not just the hair club for men guy. I'm also a customer. One of the things that I think is super simple about what PandaDoc does, but what we all strive to do in the closing of a deal in that whole process is having a sense of urgency and a timeline. And so one of the things that I love about PandaDoc is, in addition to how nice a quote can be designed and how it looks, there's an expiry date. So you're asking, when do I follow up post proposal? Well, I love that there's a built-in way as a salesperson that the PandaDoc will expire after a certain amount of time, and I can actually set that time. So I've got, I can add urgency to the bottom end of closing a deal, and I can add a timeline, which are organic and gives me a valid, important reason for me to follow up. So it's almost a built-in way of, making a potential prospect know that you're definitely going to be following up with them within a certain period of time.
Yeah,
so it's very simple.
We actually call that
simple feature.
Fabricating a compelling reason. So it's like every buyer that has that compelling reason to buy, our time cycle is this, we need to buy it yesterday. Everybody wants to be in that position, but it doesn't happen in every single deal. So yeah, with PandaDoc, like Adrian mentioned, you can actually almost fabricate a compelling timeline and control that sales cycle a little bit better and set the right expectations. Like Adrian said, that you will be hearing a follow-up from me, or perhaps this pricing that I approved actually does have an expiration date. We're not going to be able to approve it past a certain date too. So anything that you can do to drive decision-making and maintain a mutual action plan and timeline is obviously going to help the business.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think we have about 14 minutes left here, and I think we're going to open it up to a Q&A. Bethany, are you going to drive this portion?
Yeah. Thanks, Adrian and Mike, for the great prezzo. Appreciate it. A lot of good bits and pieces of info today. So while we're waiting for some questions to trickle in, I think one that I think could be relevant for the audience today, as I was skimming through our attendee list before we got started, it seems like there's a good chunk of some marketing folks on the call today too. So I'd love to hear both of your perspectives on, just how you guys collaborate with your marketing teams, at the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel, and if you guys have some great advice or best practices that you guys employ on your end to make that relationship successful.
Yeah, so from the bottom of the funnel perspective, it's a great question, Bethany. At PandaDoc, we hear a lot from our customers saying, when a marketer comes inbound, our sales reps aren't leveraging our content properly, or our sales reps are actually going rogue and even editing content that we've created. And that can be a huge pain for a marketing leader. You guys spend a ton of time on brand and a ton of time on your content. And the most important aspect of that is that it's being leveraged effectively. And the overall goal is to enable the sales team to use your content to close more deals and tell that cohesive story. So with PandaDoc, we try to encourage our users to enable their sales folks with content, but also control that. So you can lock content. You can keep content in certain places so that folks can't edit it, and you can actually track new content. So if we're going to roll out maybe a new case study or something from one of your new primo customers, and you want to see what kind of traction that might be gaining at the bottom of the funnel, you can actually track usage rates from the sales rep on if they're leveraging that content, but also view rates. If it's a video, you can see if people are actually viewing it. If it's a static piece of content, you can see how long folks are actually spending time viewing that. So it's a great tool for marketers and sales to leverage in the content space to try to drive brand awareness and consistency while allowing the sales reps to leverage that in a way that actually drives revenue. I'm sure Adrian has some thoughts on marketers as well.
Yeah, I could probably talk for another hour about the relationship between marketing departments and sales departments, but I think universally, no matter what size of company you work at, there's no doubt that there's always a little bit of tension between, marketing and sales. Because, especially in today's world of CAN spam, GDPR, and Castle's law that we have here in Canada, there's a lot of lists of do's and can't do's that you have to abide by in your communications today with your clients. And so it is very important that marketing has a hand in what salespeople are using to communicate with their clients. You obviously don't want salespeople to be rogue marketers and, cutting and pasting pictures off of the internet that's into, PowerPoint slides that they're not supposed to be using. But we've built a couple of features right within our tool that really speaks to, I think, incorporating the need for marketing and sales to collaborate and have joint approval of content that goes out, just like PandaDoc does. So if you think about all the possible types of situations that you would want to follow up with a client, our marketing department's already created more than a dozen templates, so that if you're launching a new product or service, or you're trying to get people to a webinar, or you're trying to set up a meeting for the first time, our marketing department has already pre-written a whole bunch of templates for you to use. And our sales team and a lot of the input from salespeople that we work with goes into a separate section, which is sales templates. So we've got pre-written templates for you to close the PandaDoc, help close the PandaDoc via email that you've got out there in the world. And also for you to send, we've got templates that you can use to do all your follow-up emails. So we actually give marketing departments the ability to lock or limit salespeople from using certain types of templates, or use completely designed in-house templates that they both agree on using.
Thanks, guys. I know as a marketer myself and working with our internal PandaDoc team, it's crucial that we stay on brand and stay on message, especially with the work we do to getting to know our buyer personas and pitching our audience. So, I appreciate both of your responses in that regard. I think we do a great job internally, and there's always room for improvement. And luckily, we have technology and tools to help us and along that way. Another great question came in. What pieces of software would you recommend for keeping track of projects and communication within a team, within your sales team, especially ones that gather and analyze data over time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the hardest part is gathering and analyzing data over time. That's going to be a tough one from my experience. But in terms of keeping track of projects and communication, I've used Trello and I've used Asana, both of which very effectively. Trello is definitely the cheaper version of that. So if you're worried about cost, I would go there. Asana has some other bells and whistles for project timelines and maintaining, progress within those projects. But yeah, Adrian, I don't know if you have any other experience with tools other than those two, but I've seen pretty good success from our operations team using those.
Yeah, we actually use Trello as well. Slack is great also because you can have multiple departments within different conversations all internally. So that can really help drive, let's say you're developing a new campaign or a piece of software. We specifically use Slack in order to communicate effectively, with each other. And we've got global operations. We have an office in Miami, one in Serbia, and one in Toronto. So we need that ability. I would say if you need to share documents, and I don't know if I should bring this up, but I've used Evernote in the past. I don't know if PandaDoc has that ability to share internal documents, but Evernote's great for, or Google Docs, obviously, to jointly maintain documents that need to be, updated real time for projects that are ongoing. The last thing that I would mention from a standpoint of sales automation, I'll bring it back, is gathering data and analyzing it over time is really important. So we do have team set up within AutoClose so that your entire sales team, whether you're separated, let's say you've got 10 outside wholesalers and 10 inside wholesalers, you may be separated by geography or by vertical, but you can, whoever is the sales leader You can share templates with each other, but you can also oversee all of the results. And it is really important to consistently measure, what's happened in the past in order to share best practices. Why did Billy get such a good open rate here? Why did Joanne get a great click rate? And why did Bobby get the most replies in his campaign? Really drill down and see, what the content was that they used in order to achieve those results. So you can do that right within our tool as well.
Awesome.
Yep,
thanks, guys. And a shout out to one of our listeners. They chimed in with their favorite tools, Basecamp, Slope, and Monday.com were their suggestions. So thanks to whoever gave us that nice little recommendation. Certainly appreciate it. So we only have a few minutes left. I wanted to spend this last couple minutes just pointing out a couple of free resources we've made available to our listeners today. So PandaDoc, we are feel free to take a look at our Elements of a Winning Sales Proposal. It goes into a little more in-depth about what Mike was speaking of earlier about, just key ingredients that you would want to include in your proposal to make sure you can close deals faster. PandaDoc does also offer a 14-day free trial, so there is a link there as well to sign up. Adrian, did you want to take a minute or two and just talk about some resources that you're offering from AutoClose?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are offering a free ebook as well. It's a great read. It's a very easy read. We call it 673 Years of Sales Excellence because jointly we gathered a collection of 32 of the biggest tech startup entrepreneurs or social media influencers, people that have been excelling at sales their entire lives, and their joint years of experience came to 673 years. So you're going to hear 32 different opinions on some of the most important things that that drive sales and allow people to excel at what they do in the sales space. So that's available for all of you for free. And also, if you follow the link under attachments and links, you could get a free 14-day trial with us as well. So we're happy to either onboard you, or if you want to book a meeting with me directly, you can do so right on our website as well, or anyone from our sales team.
Awesome. Mike, Adrian, thanks guys so much for your content today. Super appreciate it. It was a great, thoughtful discussion. And thanks to all of our listeners. And we hope you guys have a great day.
Thanks, Bethany. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Have a great one.
Yeah. Thanks again. Have a good rest of the week.
Bye-bye, everybody.
See you guys.